Okay, then we start with you, Molly. But good afternoon, first of all, to all of the participants. My name is Erik Hølekberg, and I'm work for a Norwegian Agriculture Advisory Service in Scandinavian. That's Norsk Landbruksrådgivning Østafjells. We are one of the 7 partners in the Interreg North Sea region carbon farming project. I'm very happy to introduce the webinar about Swedish carbon farmers go regenerative. And we will start with Molly first, who is a farmer, but afterwards Jessica, when she has solved her technical issues, we hopefully get her on. And Swedish carbon sequestration, or svensk kollagring, inlagring, who is called in Swedish, is a platform that connects farmers, companies, organizations, and knowledge institutions to enable sequestration of carbon at a large scale in Swedish agricultural soil. Svensk kolinlagring want to create a win-win solution that contribute to mitigate climate change, increase soil fertility and yields, and also profitably in Swedish agriculture. We are also very happy to have with us a Swedish carbon farmer who will share her experience, solution, challenges, and outcome from her fields, and why she has chosen to be a part of Svensk kolinlagring. Hear her story and be engaged. We need more engaged farmers. And then I am happy to introduce Molly Rygg, who is from the United States, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
And she has worked as a chef in American Southeast Asia for 15 years. But she wanted to live a life that had less of an impact of the planet and contribute to fighting climate change in some way. Then she met her husband Jonas, who is from Sweden. After spending the summer at the Reichdale in Sunne, Sweden, Molly decided to start her own small farm using Reichdale as the main inspiration. They moved to their farm in 2018 and started Lya Gård 101 in 2019. I hope that was correctly, Molly.
Yes, yes.
And then I'm very happy to give the microphone to you, and then you can share your presentation.
Okay.
And I remind the participants, if they have any questions, please write them in the chat.
Okay. Okay. So my name is Molly, and I'll be talking about my farm, Lya Gård 101 today. And we are located outside of Halmstad in Halland, which is in southern Sweden. We have 6 hectares of land, and we are CRAV certified, which is organic certified in Sweden. And our first season was in 2019. So we are just finishing our 3rd season growing on the farm. This is an aerial photo of part of our farm taken last summer. So we have 6 hectares of land. Only 4 hectares are farmable. We have 2 hectares along the stream, which is a riparian buffer. We use a permanent bed system. All of our beds are 75 centimeters by 10 meters.
Sorry, Molly, did you? Yeah. We only see a picture of some vegetables.
Oh, you can't see the slideshow?
No, you'd have to move. I think you share the wrong screen.
Okay.
If you just click on number 2 or 3. Okay, now we see. Yeah.
Now you.
Now we see the air photo of the farm.
But can you just see the photo, or you see my whole screen?
We see the whole screen with the small slides on the left.
Okay, so I wonder how I can get just the slide.
Yep.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, but just it's nice just to go through the slides like you do now.
Whoops, sorry. Now I. Yeah. Okay, so it's okay like this?
I think that's okay.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry about that. I don't know why it's doing that, but I can make it.
The most important here is your story.
Yeah. So yes, we have 30 annual flower beds here. We have 18 perennial flower beds here. Here we have an 8-meter by 20-meter unheated polytunnel, and our lane hens stay there in the winter, and in the summer we have tomatoes and cucumbers. And we have a 4.2-meter by 30-meter caterpillar tunnel here, and we're putting up another caterpillar tunnel next year. And total, we have 128 vegetable and strawberry beds. We rotate strawberries through our vegetables. And we have 80 beds here, and the other 48 beds are off the photo. And also off the photo down here, we have approximately 1.5 hectare field with 200 fruit trees planted in 4 lanes, 15 meters apart, 50 apple trees, 50 plum, 50 pear, 50 cherry. We have pastured hens, which we move through the field in an eggmobile, moving them every day or every other day. And in the summer, we also have pastured turkeys, which we move through the spots where we don't have hens, especially our little field where they're restoring some fertility to the soil. And next year, we're going to plant blueberries there, and the turkeys will move through the field until the blueberries are big enough, so about 3 years. We live next to a fairly busy road, which is good for us because inside of our barn, we have an on-site farm shop, which we'll be talking about later. So, oops, I can see this is, I have to make it a little bit smaller because it's not showing the whole slide. Oops, sorry. So what are we doing on the farm? What methods are we using to try to store carbon in our soil? And is it working? The main way we are trying to store carbon in our soil is by being no-dig or no-till. We have a permanent bed system. Every year we just add compost on top. So we're trying to build as much soil organic matter as possible. We leave all of the roots in the soil, which greatly increases the carbon storage. We just take out root vegetables, obviously. We do no plowing, so there's no releasing of carbon into the atmosphere. Our farm is human-powered. Everything is done by hand with a wheelbarrow, a rake, a fork. There's a small diesel consumption. We use the tractor to move the eggmobile and to move large amounts of compost sometimes. At the moment, we bring in mushroom compost, which is a waste product of an organic mushroom facility. But in the future, we hope to be self-sufficient in compost. And we cycle all of our waste. We use everything. We take out the hen bedding from the tunnel when the hens go out in the spring, and we compost that with all of our vegetable waste. We also do vermicomposting. We put the vermicompost on the vegetable beds. And we use Korean natural farming techniques to make fertilizers on site using plants like nettles, horsetail, comfrey, chickweed. So we're really trying to limit the inputs that we bring onto the farm, and then the outputs are just the food that we sell to have as little carbon footprint as possible. We also try to do as much cover cropping as possible. In our beds, we do succession planting, 2 or 3 crops per year, a diversity of crops. We do multi-cropping, filling any bare soil. For example, when a plant like cauliflower is small, we'll transplant lettuce in between it. When the lettuce is ready to harvest, the cauliflower has then filled up all the space. If there's any space between rows, we can seed a row of herbs like dill or coriander. And we do really dense planting, as you can see with the spinach, to try to limit how much bare soil there is. And we do some more traditional cover cropping, like in this photo. We do have a short growing season. We only have 4 months frost free, so it is kind of hard to devote too much space to cover cropping. But each year we try to have 20 beds have a cover crop. In this photo, it's oats, clover, and tillage radish. And our main goal is to keep as much growing in the beds for as long as possible to keep the soil organisms being fed. And we also try to incorporate as many trees and bushes into our farm as possible. And this is a photo of our big field. As I mentioned before, we just finished planting fruit trees there, and we move our hands through it. This photo is taken before the trees were planted. In the future, we would love to have some sort of ruminants, some cows, sheep, something like that, to further improve the pasture, to be storing more carbon into the soil, and to also add a product for us to sell. And the turkeys are also being moved through the fields, as I mentioned, and they live in this turkey trailer. And next year we'll be planting berry bushes alongside the tree lanes. And we also plant windbreaks everywhere we can for wind protection. So we've planted willow, birch, spruce, beech, linden, and we have naturally growing aspen and alder trees in our riparian buffers that we leave and let keep growing. And we have been grazing the turkeys under those as well. Any extra space along the edges of our beds or anywhere on the farm, we've planted trees like nut trees. We've planted hazelnuts, walnuts, chestnuts, pecans, heart nuts. We've also planted trees like mulberry and oak, which could be in the future food for livestock like pigs. We're working on planting hedgerows around all of our flower and vegetable beds with edible perennial plants like gooseberry, honeyberry, sea buckthorn, elderflower, quince, Jerusalem artichokes. So trying to add as many layers to increase carbon storage and also increase the diversity of products we have. And looking at the methods we've done so far, to answer the question, is it working? Are we storing more carbon in our soil? For us, it's kind of too soon for us to know, especially since most of our trees are very small. We can tell the soil in our vegetable beds is greatly improved, but we can't say exactly how much carbon we've stored so far. And marketing, how do we sell our products to consumers? At the moment, we sell all of our products directly to the end consumer or to restaurants. And we also sell at Ring, which is like a farmer's market online where everything is pre-booked. It's popular in Norway and Sweden and Finland. And we also have our farm shop. So because we sell directly to consumer, we get 100% of the profits. There's no middleman. And we also have the chance to communicate directly to all of our customers about how we grow and that we're striving to be regenerative and that fighting climate change is a really important goal for us. We also make products from excess or unsellable produce. So we have less waste and we have more diversity of product. Like we make strawberry jam, basil pesto, radish, pickles. And our farm shop is a cooperative between our farm and 3 other nearby producers. So we have Kjørkbygård, which sells meat, vegetables, and eggs. Andreas Matgård, which sells lamb and beef. Hagernas Mary, that has cheese and milk. And us 3 farmers are all members of Svensk Kolinlagring, the Swedish carbon farming project. And the farm where Hagernas Mary gets their milk from, Skogsgård, is also a member of Svensk Kolinlagring. So we say that we're a unique farm shop. And what makes us such a unique farm shop is first that we only sell our own products and that we all farm or produce our food using regenerative principles or regenerative goals. We aim to be as environmentally responsible as possible. We built the shop using as much recycled materials as we could, and we use reusable containers for our products. So when the customer brings them back, they get a deposit. We use paper as much as we can rather than plastic. So having the farm shop together, we share the workload of running a store, and we can attract more customers with a bigger diversity of products. And we are open to having new members. We would like to be a platform where people practicing regenerative agriculture can sell through us. But if someone wants to join us, they have to be trying to be also a regenerative farm. We also offer interactive experiences to people visiting the store. So they are welcome to walk around the farm, see how the vegetables are grown, see the hens. We have self-pick flowers and self-pick strawberries. And in the future, we'll have self-pick blueberries. And when our fruit trees are producing, those will also be self-pick. And we have a children's garden where children can harvest their own vegetables and have a more interactive experience. So some pictures of our shop and the flowers we sell, the vegetables we sell, and we have beef and lamb, which are holistically grazed beef and lamb from the other two farmers. So why did we join the Svensk Kolinlagring, which is the Swedish carbon farming project? What was in it for us? We already had these regenerative agriculture goals before we joined the program. The main reason we wanted to join was help with data collection, to help us know how much carbon we're storing and whether what we're doing is working or not, which is not always easy to know as a small farmer. And we're also looking forward to networking with other like-minded farmers and access to information, getting tips. What are people doing that's working? What could we be doing better? General feedback of our methods. And we also wanted to be an example of how small farms can also be carbon farmers. We are the smallest farm in the program, and since the majority of farmers in the world are small farmers, we felt they needed to be considered as part of the solution as well. So why are small farmers an important part of the carbon farming solution? I think we have the opportunity to have a more positive impact per hectare than big farms. According to the UN, small farms produce 30% of the world's food, and we have bigger yields per hectare than large farms, so we need less land to grow more food. And small farmers can also be more efficient than big farms. Farms like ours have little to no waste, and farms over 1,000 hectares can waste 15 to 30% of their crop before it leaves the farm. The more wasted food means the more deforestation to grow more food. We have less imports and are therefore more flexible, less affected by global supply chain disruptions. Our supply chains are more local and can take advantage of local resources better. We also have a direct link to consumers, which means no waste in the shipping, storage, distributor phase. The food we produce goes from our field to our customer's plate in a very short time. And in terms of implementing some of the regenerative agricultural ideas, it can be easier to complete big projects on a small farm. For example, we can plant tree lanes and windbreaks more densely on our field because we don't have big machinery to move around. And we can test different ideas. If it doesn't work, it's not a disaster. We can be more flexible to try out different things, and we can adapt to different market demands more easily. So how can programs like Svensk Kolinlagring scale up? And what is the bottleneck that stops more farmers to use regenerative methods? I think the number one thing stopping farmers from adopting regenerative methods is knowledge. They don't want to take the risk to try something new. That's why Svensk Kolinlagring giving examples of farmers successfully using carbon farming techniques in all different types of farms and all different sizes can be so important, because if a farmer sees that it works, they're much more likely to try it. Another bottleneck is money. Most farms run on tight margins. Regenerative agriculture techniques can be slow to take effect. It can take years to get your investment back after doing something like planting fruit trees. And another bottleneck is time. Most farmers already have a lot going on and don't have time to implement a new way of growing. And for small farmers, a big bottleneck is compensation. When you are compensating based on acreage, like most compensation plans or government subsidies are per hectare, a small farm can end up getting very little compensation. And government subsidies or carbon farming projects could look at other metrics like yield per hectare or carbon stored per hectare to advantage small farms more. For example, in Sweden, you have to have a minimum of 4 hectares of arable land to even register as a farm with the agriculture ministry. So someone under 4 hectares wouldn't even be able to register. I think small farms are a vital part of the global food system and need to be encouraged and supported to adapt regenerative agricultural practices. This will help them build resiliency against the changing climate with healthier soils holding more water and a diversity of products, a type of insurance in extreme weather events. And I hope more carbon farming projects consider the value of small farms along with the value of big farms. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Molly, for listening to the interesting story about your farm. It's been some activity on the chat, and maybe also I have a question, but
Sure. Should I stop the screen sharing?
Yeah, you can stop the screen sharing.
Okay.
And then I think Lars had some questions about if it's suitable both for small and big farms, but I saw that was you answered that in your presentation after he asked the question, and also okay. Thomas has helped him with it. The other question from Lars is at the perspective of the market. Are enough consumers willing to pay a fair price for the products to support this carbon farming and regenerative agricultural? Do you get a bigger price for your product than other farmers?
Oh, do we take a bigger price?
Yeah.
At the moment, I wouldn't say we take a bigger price than other organic producers. I don't think I haven't. I mean, can we or do we?
I can. Do you think you can? Are consumers willing to pay for it?
Yeah, that's some people definitely, but is it enough? I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I guess the hopeful thing about regenerative agriculture is once you've been practicing it, if you've been practicing it successfully for a long enough time, theoretically you would have less expenses. I mean, if you build up a healthier soil, you would have less inputs. And if you didn't have to buy so much stuff, you could have more profits by charging the same price.
Yep, that's good. And the big question from me as an advisor, what is the best advice you can give someone who wants to start like you do? What are the biggest challenges?
Biggest challenge, yeah, it's just a lot of work.
A lot of work, okay. That's because you do everything manually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you also have a very low climate, what do you call it, footprint then.
Yeah, and if you're, I mean, that's that's the thing about doing everything on a small scale. You can do everything manually. I mean, to plant 200 fruit trees, it's not so hard. It's not that hard. Yeah.
Okay. I thank you very much, Molly, for your
Thank you.
interesting story. And then we go further to the next speaker. That's Jessica Johansson. You have been engaged in environmental issues in your whole life, and she is a biologist and owns and lives on a farm with forest and grassland in south of Sweden. From here, she works from transformative change within the food system. She is a part owner of the non-profit company Miljömatematik. I think that's translated in environmental mathematics. That started the project Svensk kolinlagring, which aims to create a system that allows farmers to get paid for their sequestration of carbon and increasing ecosystem services at farm level. What we eat and how we produce that food, we tell the destiny of the planet. And Miljömatematik wants to be a part of the solution. Then I give the word to you, Jessica. I'm very pleased, and please share your presentation.
Yes. Thank you. It has been a lot of technical issues here, so I'm just crossing my fingers that this will work. And I hope that you can hear me now as well. I had to go and pick up my
we hear you very well.
Yeah, I had to go up and pick my fetch my fiance's old computer, so
Okay.
I hope this is working. And I also have a cold, so my voice is not the best, so bear with me here. And my headphones didn't work with the sound, so yeah.
Yeah, but now we're on. Now we see your presentation.
Perfect.
With the small, yeah, that's the big one. That's
yeah.
nice. Yes.
And then I will have this one. Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome to start.
Okay, so thank you. Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. I will talk to you today about our project Svensk kolinlagring, the Swedish carbon sequestration. And Molly, of course, she has talked some about it already, and I didn't hear everything that Molly said due to these technical issues. So if something is repetition, then sorry for that. And I will also talk about how our project is designed and why we do this and how. And then I will finish off with some like next steps and our vision of the future. So the we in this story is a small not-for-profit private company called Miljömatematik. And we have a little humble mission to transform the food system. And we run this project, Svensk kolinlagring, this initiative within our focus area of mission-driven innovation. So, and as you can see, we also defined a mission for Svensk kolinlagring itself. So we initiated Svensk kolinlagring in order to build a platform aiming to incentivize, or rather enable, farmers to sequester more carbon in their soils by using regenerative principles. For example, the ones that Molly talked to you about. And this project is funded by EIP and Vinnova, which is like the Swedish Innovation Agency, and also a Swedish foundation called the Svea Green Foundation. And we always talk about like why do we do this? Why did we start this project? Well, we know that food production is a major driver of global environmental change, and in order to solve this, all the problems that we are facing right now with the environment, for example, the phosphorus and nitrogen cycle and the loss of biodiversity, and also the land system change that all comes from how we produce our food, we need to address this problem at a system level. And we do address this complexity in our project, but we communicate carbon because that's like a proxy for all of these things. But in order to solve this, we need not to only work with like what type of methods we are using when we are producing our food. We also have to change what we are eating and how we are eating. So without the systemic view of that, we have to change what we eat, and we also have to change the methods and the principles that we are farming up. So that's like the whole, the system that we have to work with. And we want to work with all of these different issues at the same time. So it's very complex, but we communicate carbon because that's like easy and to understand. So we started 2020 with a learning by doing pilot. And so we quickly realized when we started this that if we have any chance of solving this tricky and complex puzzle, we really need to start by gathering experts and farmers and financial institutions and other the industry to start and collaborate together. So really wanted to reach this goal of to build an ecosystem of collaboration partners to fill in these knowledge and information gaps. And we also launched a digital platform in December 2020. And then we also continued. So we started another pilot round 2021 and 2022. And then the goal is to develop this platform and facilitate this transition into the future agricultural system that we want to see. And what this agricultural system looks like is also created together by the different stakeholders within the project. So we are both building this conceptual platform that is actually the project of Svensk Kolinlagring. And that will also be further on when the project is finished. This will continue as a non-for-profit organization that is owned and governed by the different stakeholders together. And how this is going to look like, we also work together with the farmers and the industries and companies and researchers to create this future together. And then we also have this digital platform that is kolinlagring.se. And at the bottom, to the left here, you see how it looks. So this top one is the starting page, and the bottom one is the farmer portal that we build, where farmers, these 40 farmers that are joining the project, can log in and register the different measures that they want to do every year, so that we also can easily access data for our follow-up system. So we also have 11 development partners that are actually paying the farmers to join. So they get paid 1,000 kronor per hectare that they are joining with, and 300 kronor goes to us for doing the measurements and follow-ups. And we also started a carbon club because we have a really long waiting list with farmers that couldn't join the pilot. So we started a carbon club at WhatsApp to enable this sharing of knowledge and just like what's working and what's not and so on, like an informal group just of knowledge sharing. And within the project, we also co-create future scenarios for the food system, as I already said, and I will show you what that looks like further on. We also work with the Nordic framework for MRV and certification. And here, of course, we also collaborate with other Nordic countries, like and Carbon Action, for example. And we are aiming to finish this pilot and launch our next step this winter. So the next question is how we are working within the project. So the most important thing is what Molly just was talking about, this knowledge co-creation. And here are some examples of what it can look like at the different farms. So we want to try out different methods and practices in our farms. And it's always up to the farmer to decide what they want to try. And we are there as a support and advisor, but it's really in their hands and for them to drive their transformation on their farm. Because the farmer, they know his or her land the best, and it's also them that has to do the work. So it has to be methods that they are ready for, and like steps that they are ready to take. And we normally start off this conversation, like when they join the program, we start off the conversation around what type of problems they face on their farm, what type of issues do they want to address and get help with, and we start from there. And what you see here is to the left here we have some cover crops, so it's phacelia and buckwheat, and in the middle we have a strip till establishment of winter rape. And you can see here the leftovers from the winter wheat from the year before is still there. So it was no, so it's an example of what do you call it? Reduced disturbance. And then we have to the right here, we have lucerne. And it's really good for dry periods. As you can see here, it's almost all only lucerne, but it's actually in a big mix in a lye. But it was super dry here this summer. In June, we didn't get any rain at all. So, and then the lucerne was basically the only crop that was growing because it has really deep roots. So that's just an example of these different methods and what we are trying out on different farms. And I can say that the farmers are super innovative. Like instead of us choosing the methods, to let the farmers choose the methods is really, really, it has worked out really, really well. So the next step that needs to that we need to work with is the measurements and validation of carbon. So how can we actually validate that these different practices that they are doing has a result? And now I'm going to show you, it's a little bit complicated model, and this is the version 2, but I still wanted to just to show you that we are building a model together with researchers on Stockholm University and a lot of other people that we are cooperating with. And it's for measuring carbon at farm level. So we have to go, like we need to go from field to farm level in the future to be sure that we actually like catch the whole system. And we also need to have a long period of time that we look for change. So we have the idea is that we need to look over 10 years of time, because that's how long the crop rotation can be. And we have a lot of different inputs in this model. And we have also tried some different mathematical models that are already existing. And we are, I mean, the sentence is that they are not working. They are not good enough for what we want to do. So we need new models that are based on data that comes from systems that we want to see. Because that's also a problem with the models that we have today. They build on farming systems that we are trying to leave. So they will never, ever be able to fill in the need that we have for these new types of systems. So therefore, we need to build new models, and we need data from the farms that do farming that we want, how we want it to be done. And then, of course, we need to validate if this is actually working with these models. And it's really about the combination of satellite imaging and the on-field data. And if you have more questions about this, I cannot answer too much because this is not my area of expertise, but I can send on questions about it to the responsible people from our team. Yes, and then the third one is, of course, the business models. And here we have used actually this picture from your project, from the Interreg project, to talk about these things with our farmers and other actors in our project. And of course, Molly, she's in the model at farm level category. But we also work with the agri-food chain models with our the companies from the food industry that are joining our project. And of course, we also need to plan for models outside the agri-food chain, so also looking at that. And of course, all of those two top ones, they are dependent on the possibility to to measure and validate carbon actually being stored. And then we have the model including government institutions that we, of course, are following very closely what is happening with the new cap and so on, and also joining different discussions locally on how these can be, on what we think that they should look like. But we really see that we need all of these parallel to each other. So the next question is like, what is the next steps? And we think that what's really needed is to just continue working with these 3 pillars that we're already working on. So we need to continue to test and incentivize farmers to try out new systems on their farms, and follow that. So we shouldn't wait for more research before we start. Instead, just get started and follow up while you do it. And we also think really it's important to follow up on real farms instead of testing areas like the universities have, because they are not farmers, they are researchers, and they will never be as good as a real farmer. And also it will go so much faster if we just follow up at a farm level. And also what we have seen in many of the studies is that they only look at one factor at a time, and the reality is so much more complex. It's a lot of different methods being used, a lot of different factors, and to actually address that, you have to look at farm level, maybe even landscape level, and you have to look at real situations and not in a lab or at a specific site close to the university. So that's really, really important. And we also think with this knowledge co-creation that we think in this first period, we need to have the farmers that have been doing this for a while. We need to follow up what they are doing and validate that it's working, and then also use the farmers as the advisors, because the advisors now, they are not, they don't have the right knowledge to help others. So in order to fill this gap, we think that some of the farmers need to step in and be advisors and get paid for being so as well. And on the next one, this measurements and validation of carbon, we need to build new carbon sequestration models that that's based on the work that is done with these practices and this knowledge co-creation and what's happening on the farms right now. And some farms have been doing this for a lot of years, so use their data to build these new models. And with the satellite imaging, you can also go backwards in time, which will save us time, because if we start the project now and look 10 years forward, then it will already be too late before you can actually say something. So instead, look at the farms that already been doing things and look backwards. That way it can go a lot faster. And we also need new and innovative business models to evolve all types of businesses and all types of farms, no matter the size. So it's also really important that we need things that are working for the small scale farms and also for the bigger ones that wants to do a change. And we also see a really big possibility here for new types of corporations and between farmers that have animals and farmers that don't have animals, and between farmers that have a lot of land and people that want to do things but they don't have any land to do so. So we think also that instead of for these big farms to also be able to diversify, maybe they shouldn't have employees, but rather let other enterprises work and do projects on their land, and cooperate on the land that they have. For example, like Molly, I mean, if she would do that on someone else's land, imagine how many people could get work within the farming business if one person could live off 1 or 2 hectares, instead of as it is now that one farmer have to have 500 hectares to make a living, and still it's very hard. And also that reflects in how much food is produced. Like the more labor intensive, the more food you have with less climate impact. But it's also, and then also you can create a lot of food on a very small acreage, instead of these really big farms where you can produce, like it's less work intensive, but it's very fossil fuel intensive instead. So that's and why it looks like that is because the politics have been driving this development. So so we are building this system on some principles, and this is why we have built this, designed our system so participatory. So we have built a system on some of the principles for systemic change, from a scientist, thinker, and writer that's called Donella Meadows. And she has written a book that's called Thinking in Systems, and she has also identified some principles to transform a system. And as I told you in the beginning, that's what we're aiming for. We want to transform the system, and that's why we have designed our project after these principles. So the first one is with information flows. So we need to create information flows, and therefore we build this digital platform, so that we can share data and co-produce knowledge. And we also arrange seminars and field visits and so on. And we have newsletters and also yearly reports where we are very transparent with everything that we learned. And we also are very happy to share our data with others. So everything is built open source. And the other one is self-organization. So the power to add, change, or evolve system structure. And that's why we want to have this distributive design, to have this system being governed by the actual farmers and stakeholders that are in the project, so that everyone can that wants to can be a part of this organization, and will take this project into the future. And then we have the goals, so the purpose or function of the system. And that's also why we created this mission that you saw in the beginning. Like we need to work, we want to work with mission-driven innovation, and then we need to speak out what is that mission, so that we can join around that, and then everyone can work on their own. But we know what our mission is that we want to achieve together. So first you have to create a mission, so that everyone can agree on, and then you can go on and build these tech solutions or digital platforms and so on. And the fourth one is the paradigms. So how do you actually make a paradigm shift? So we want to so it's not only about the methods, it's also about to talk about things that, like, what's the purpose of farming, what kind of life do I want to live. It's not for the money, it's rather about the knowledge and the co-creation and feeling of being involved in something bigger, and the possibility to do something good and positive. That's the driving force. So instead of always to think about farming that I want to do less harm, and therefore I need to increase my yield so it's worth the negative environmental impact, instead the new thinking is that we want to do something good for the earth, and we want to produce high quality healthy food while we do so. So that's really like the mental shift that we need and want to achieve. And we want, like, that's why we work with this project, because we think that shift in mindset is what's really needed to kind of like pull out the plug and really unlock this transformative potential that carbon farming actually has. Not only like in terms of tons of carbon removed from the atmosphere, but to actually change the way that we understand and produce food, and to actually use carbon farming as a leverage to transform the whole system.
Sorry to interrupt you a bit, Jessica, but the time is running, so I know we have 2 slides left, so please take them.
Yeah.
And I have one quick question.
Yeah, this is the final slide. So I just want to show you our future vision, what it can look like. So this is one of the pictures that that's illustrated by the researcher Emma Johansson at Lund University, and it's a collaboration between our farmers when they have envisioned the future, and then this is the result. And we're now continuing to work on these future visions with the workshop that we held just Monday, Tuesday this week. Yes, so I want to finish off with a bouquet from one of our farmers in northern Sweden. And it's a bouquet of cover crops. So I think is really to show also that the change is really beautiful and diverse. And also this quote is really, I think, gathers everything that we want to do within our project. Yes, thank you. So, and I haven't seen anything in the chat or anything because I only have one screen here. So yeah, now I'm back. Yeah, we cannot hear you, Eric.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, now I hear you.
Okay, sorry. It's one question. It's a bit some comments in the chat, but it's one question to you from Jan, and he asked, do you see broader political support from the Swedish government that might help facilitate change? If I'm correct, Sweden has a long-standing tradition of a very liberal agricultural policy.
Yeah, no, I would say no, not at the moment, no. And I think really it's about maybe lack of knowledge from the government and no one taking really responsibility. But the lack of knowledge, I think, and understanding of the complexity of the system, I think, is the biggest problem. So we can see some projects going on, like a little incentivizing here and there, but we have a real problem with the like longevity and nothing is really long term or so I would say no.
Okay. I see the time is run out, so the participants can have time to change to another workshop. But I thank you very much for joining us and telling us the nice story of a svensk kolinlagring. And hopefully you will succeed making it bigger. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.